Good evening. This is Maestro Critello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Calderis Refinery. Our first player today is Troillet, playing as the Space Marine Apothecary, a healing commander who supports units with a targeted heal as well as heal auras. And his opponent is Noisy, playing as the Imperial Guard Inquisitor, a disabling and debuffing commander who can also become a melee tank. So then, this is now Game 3 of the finals series between Troillet and Noisy from a monthly Rumble tournament number 13. The series is currently 1-1, so each player has a game. We're going to see how things go in this third game, now on Calderis Refinery. And, I mean, normally in the past, I would just leave all of these monthly Rumble tournament games to be put up on the monthly Rumble tournament channel. But as of right now, that channel does seem to be inactive. So I just wanted to take the initiative to put these games out there. Because again, this is premium content between two of the best players in the game. Even if these games aren't as long as a lot of the usual cast that Indrid and I put up on our channels. So wow, the early pressure we're seeing from Noisy is actually him forcing off or pressuring the attacks all the way back into their base just by approaching with the Inquisitor. And she's on the verge at this point where she might take out attack model. We will see a heal, and that heal should be able to prevent them from losing a model, and they finally get some support. But right now we see Troillet committing his entire army right in front of his base, and his entire army not even being very big, in front of his base just to force off the Inquisitor. So this is part of Noisy's early pressure, and he's getting the map control from it. He's contributing just as many units to fighting Troillet, but he has more units because, again, he's going for his cheap triple guardsman build, all of them put out on the field without their sergeants, so he got them out very quickly, and he had two sergeants capturing points while he fought against Troillet with just his Sentinel, the Inquisitor, and another squad of guardsmen. So this is part of this. I mean, we're seeing this now for the third game in a row. This is clearly part of Noisy's strategy. He has an aggressive opening that very, very quickly puts his opponent on the back foot of things. We already see him having a clear lead in VPs. And I guess that's part of the advantage of going for his usual longer builds. And I think also just an advantage of the fact that he's playing a race where he can buy units cheaply. And I mean, I guess technically Space Marines could buy scouts cheaply, and actually, to be honest, they often do that. But for Troillet, for the purpose of fighting the Imperial Guard, he really wants the tax rather than the scouts. And that's why we're seeing Troillet now also for the third game in a row going for a double tack build. And I mean, the tacks are going to win very, very handily over the guardsmen. And the guardsmen right now, all three of them only have 6 out of 6 models. None of them have upgraded to sergeants. But I mean, even with their sergeants, they do not win head-to-head against the tacks. We do, of course, see this tack squad right here that has come under a lot of fire. But I mean, Noisy is picking his matchups nicely. He's tying up the tacks with the Inquisitor, who does start with decent melee damage to start out. Her starting sword does 30 DPS regular melee, roughly. It might 31 might actually be the exact, but it's roughly that area. However, he's also regularly upgrading to the Holy Brazier, and I think this is also just very commonly a choice for the Inquisitor against power armor races. And it's a choice because it's a power weapon, so it's roughly going to double her damage to units like tacks. And that is pretty huge. I mean, that's the difference between... She can now bleed models, and I think that's going to be especially important when she's going to be facing units like tacks, which otherwise may not bleed, especially against the Apothecary. So we finally see Troillet changing things up. He now has gone for Assault Marines as his 5th squad, or as his 4th squad rather, as opposed to the Devastators. And I mean, the Devastators have served him pretty well, but he's just switching things up. That does allow him to pretty easily counter the heavy weapon team. We already see the Sentinel Stomp purchase. I was wondering if Noisy was going without them, and this is going to be This is going to be Noisy's primary, potentially Noisy's primary defense against the Assault Marines. He might also just do what high-level players sometimes do, which is they just kite a lot. Kite a lot, especially since Noisy has so many ranged units. He's finally getting 2 sergeants, but he doesn't have a 3rd one queued up yet, but it's not like he has many resources in the bank. This is already starting to look a lot stronger for Troillet. I mean, the early pressure from Noisy did work to some extent. He's got a significant lead in VPs, but now we see the power pressure from Troillet that I feel like we haven't seen as much in the previous games. It's the first time we're seeing a Flamer purchase from Troillet, and we could see these Assault Marines now jump on the Heavy Weapon team. Heavy Weapon team is actually all the way in the back, so it's not actually shooting at any of these units. Attack squad got very low on health, and we should see... we don't have a heal ready from the Apothecary, and wow, instead the Assault Marines were baited into jumping on the Triple Guardsmen, and they end up jumping right into the Heavy Weapon team firing arm. But some good patience by Troillet, manages to save just enough energy to jump on the Heavy Weapon team again, but this is still not a winning engagement for him, because that meant he left Scouts and Tax up against Triple Guardsmen and a Sentinel, which was just not a winning engagement for him. Now, although Noisy definitely has the squishier units, he has the Guardsmen, which are going to lose models much more easily. Right now, the ranged firepower definitely favors Noisy, because he has Triple Guardsmen, as well as the Sentinel, and even the Heavy Weapon team. So he definitely has the advantage in terms of just ranged DPS. And he really created a lot of situations in that engagement where he was able to utilize his ranged firepower like in overwhelming ways. Like he had all 3 of his guardsmen focusing down a single tac squad, and that single tac squad was left alone because 1 tac squad had been forced off. The Assault Marines were baited into jumping then on the Heavy Weapon team, and that left the 3 guardsmen free to fire on the remaining tac squad. So we see Tax coming back out of their base. Noisy is again, for at least the 2nd game in a row, if not the 3rd game in a row, making it to Tier 2 before Troillet. Now, I mean, when the Tax approach, they will do a huge amount of damage to the Guardsmen. But we also see unfortunately for Troillet, this time he does not have the ability to control the Inquisitor as well without having a Devastator Marine squad. He's also very riskily putting his Assault Marines out on the field with only half of their health, and he doesn't quite have a heal ready. He now has the energy. He may not have a heal on cooldown, and he's at a rather far range. He does manage to get a heal. That was cutting it really close, but he does manage to win that engagement, even though he was cutting it very close. So I think we're going to see some more power pressure from Troillet, but well, even though he's going to attempt power pressure, it's still not really going to work out in his favor. Now, the disadvantage of going for the Assault Marines this time, as opposed to the Devastators like he did in the past, is that he went for a more expensive Tier 2. Assault Marines costing 450 requisition and 50 power, as opposed to the 250 requisition and 30 power of the Devastator Marines, meaning he just had slower tech this time around. His generators definitely came later because he spent more time waiting on the resources to get this squad of Assault Marines out. So he hasn't even started Tier 2 yet, and he's getting another squad of Assault Marines, and I mean I mean, we can just see it right now that that's not going to be good for him. Because the Chimera's already out on the field. Troillet, alright, that must have been, maybe it was just an Overwatch mistake. Or, no, it couldn't have been an Overwatch mistake, because he was buying those Assault Marines when he had 100 power in the bank, and he finally cancels those Assault Marines, now sees the Chimera and starts Tier 2 instead, which is definitely the right choice. Now, he's behind in tech. I think he's been behind in tech every single time. But we did see in the first game he was able to bring it back anyway. It could be... well, I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but the VP's and still in favor of Noisy. Now, part of what this should mean, the Chimera should be able to move forward over here, should be able to get most of a generator bash, especially... well, the Chimera's not going to do it. because instead we have another Bane Wolf drop, and we've also seen the Bane Wolf. Is it all 3 games now? Definitely in the second game and the third game, but we're seeing this Bane Wolf drop very, very frequently. And it's interesting because this is a unit you don't see very often in a lot of public games, but we're seeing it now a lot in this tournament game with a very high-level player. And I would take that, the fact that we're seeing now in a 1v1 tournament game with a high-level player, as more of a testament to how effective it is than in team games. And we see it burns down the full power farm. Right now it's completely uncontested. It can kite away while also damage and potentially bleeding all of these squads. Now the Bane Wolf does also have an active snare ability, one that will slow units. I believe, and this is something that I wish I could say for sure, but I believe it also has a passive snaring ability that's not as strong, like a passive slow ability that's not as strong as the active one. I'm pretty sure, someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I of course should know this, and after this game I will check up on that to make sure. We do see the missile attack again, so we're seeing the missile attack every single time, but maybe he'll also switch out the flamer attack as well, since I think the time has passed for him to just get generator bashes with the flamer attack. Especially since missile attacks are good for bashing generators anyway, and at this point in the game, bashing generators isn't really his priority. It's just something he can do when he can. Otherwise, well, the priority right now is definitely getting back some map control, because he's lost his natural requisition point, and that's also another sign, I feel like, of just the level of play we're seeing. Noisy, with the kind of army that he has, is taking advantage of his overwhelming size, or the overwhelming numbers, to really harass Troillet's resources. And Troillet now standing at a very, very weak-looking plus 172 requisition income, as well as a plus 24 power income. So that's looking really, really weak for him. He also doesn't have many resources in the bank. This is actually already, oh my god, and we see a friendly fire plasma cannon shot, which is going to dramatically reduce the effectiveness of his assault marines. It's now actually looking really, really bad for Troillet in this third game. Even though he is the Apothecary, and the Apothecary should normally be relatively resistant to bleed, it's just really not looking good for him at the moment. We'll see what he can do, though. And again, I mean, this is a tournament game between players who are not just going to give up so easily. Tournament games, we've seen some pretty incredible comebacks from players like Holy Hammer. We don't see Holy Hammer here. I wonder what he's up to. He did win the Elite Mod Championship that happened before Monthly Rumble Tournament number 13. And Holy Hammer is truly a beast in his own right, even though he's much maligned and generally not liked by much of the community for his behavior, which does make sense. He is definitely not the nicest of folk. But Troillet, or Noisy now, really sitting on his advantage. Not pressing his advantage so much. He's not really pressing for the most part. He's mostly... Oh! Well, damn, gotta move that Sentinel back. He's not really pressing. He's just sitting on his advantage. He's playing it safe, and really forcing Troillet to take the initiative and make a move. And Troillet pretty much has to. Now, the good thing is that Troillet could put the scouts on the cap, and they would not be detected while they cap. So he could at least get the decap to stall things out, buy himself some time. Looks like he's going to move the scouts up without the infiltration, though, which I feel like is riskier, because again, they could just move forward, start shooting the scouts. He might just tough it out anyway. He's lost one scout model. He's going to get the decap, but the scouts, they're now attempting to infiltrate, but they lose 2 models anyway. And Troillet also ends up using his heal on the scouts, which I feel is less desirable. Oh no! We see the Manticore strike on top of the assail from the Inquisitor. It's unfortunately just looking more and more. Oh, and he didn't even finish the cap on the victory point. So we do have a new Devastator Marine squad from Troillet, but Noisy is now pretty much running away with this game. And I mean, part of what the Bane Wolf is doing, I really like the use of the Bane Wolf from Noisy. It's pretty much whenever Noisy wins an engagement, and whenever he forces Troillet off the field, he knows Troillet is going to be in his base, licking his wounds, and by that I basically mean reinforcing, trying to regroup to get back out on the field. He's just moving the Bane Wolf up to bash any power. I don't think he's even committing the Bane Wolf that hard to engagements in the middle, unless he has to. He's just kind of keeping it at range. He's actually letting it fire with the heavy bolter, the hull-mounted heavy bolter. So wow, the weapons on this thing, heavy bolter as well as that chemical cannon. And of course, the Chimera does have the hull-mounted heavy bolter as well. So some pretty serious DACA coming out of this transport. There's a lot of damage coming out of the Chimera. It does have the turret multi-laser, the heavy bolter, as well as the side multi-lasers as well. But this is, I guess, part of the disadvantage of Troillet now going for the Assault Marines. And man, this is just not going well. He does attempt a Angels of Death, and that does manage to keep him out on the field. And he doesn't lose too much on the Assault Marines. Angels of Death combined with the heal to keep the Assault Marines at relatively decent hit points, but still only 75% of their hit points, which is definitely not ideal. We see the Tax moving around, attempting a flank, and so what they did was they took out the Manticore, so not a bad play. Takes out the Manticore, but this is really, really bad news for the Tax. Unfortunately, force melee from the Guardsman doesn't do a whole lot of damage. Might take out one more model from the Tax squad, but doesn't. So actually a pretty nice play from Troillet, but I don't know if he can keep it up. He's got grenade goes in, but he's got two squads of Plasma Guardsmen to contend with, destroying his Tactical Marines. And I mean, Plasma Guardsmen, I would say they pretty much win against Tax, especially for their cost. Especially now that they've got a Commissar as well, they are going to be dirt cheap to reinforce. If they can kill even one TAC model, it is very much worth their while to lose however many Guardsmen. It is actually the cost of a single TAC model right now is equal to the cost of 12 Guardsmen. 12 Guardsmen, I believe. I did the math a long time ago. I haven't done it recently. But if my math was correct a long time ago, they will need to lose 12 Guardsmen just to equal the loss of a single Tactical Marine squad. Now, I think one consideration there that might screw up those calculations is that I believe, like, say, right now they reinforce 19 for 3 Guardsmen. But I think if there's, like, say, 11 out of 12 Guardsmen, for 17. For 17. It used to be 19. But I believe if they reinforce, like if they only have one model left, I think they will still pay the full price for that one model if there's only one model left. So double cap for Troillet. Here is the back cap from the Inquisitor, and now we have a tanky Inquisitor, so she can't be very easily stopped. She could also even just capture this point even under fire from the Tactical Marines. Instead, she wanted to complete the flank on the Devastators, could manage to bleed a model or two off. Wow, we're going to see pushes going on in all directions, Noisy moving into the natural, while Troillet's pushing in up top. I don't think it's going to go as well for Troillet, because Troillet's getting overrun by some Ogrins. However, there is a Shotgun Blast on the Ogrins. We should see a heal on the Tactical Marines to keep their health up, but the Tactical Marines might still lose models to the Ogrins. Alright, Tactical Marines, yeah, they did lose a model. The Ogrins are, of course, a lot tougher than the Assault Marines, but they're also a bit more expensive to reinforce. Same amount of requisition. Grenade on retreat attempt does not hit anything, though. But meanwhile, we do have the advance. Oh no, we see so many TAC models dying on retreat, though. The Inquisitor finishing off things in retreat. The Inquisitor, I mean, normally Imperial Guard is not a very... one of their weaknesses is that they are not very strong at killing things on retreat. I would say they are probably the worst race in the game for scoring kills on retreat, or at the very least, getting kills on retreat does require them to go into very specific builds. Ogrins are obviously very good at killing things on retreat, but Imperial Guard players don't always buy Ogrins. However, right now the best thing for killing on retreat is this Inquisitor. And it's actually Troillet who calls a GG. We do see that he was about to lose his double cap. No, he didn't have the double cap, my mistake. He had a single cap. So the series is now 2-1 in favor of Noisy.